The member for Mallee, Anne Webster, joins us again for 2022. Great to have you back, Dr. Webster.
Thank you, Ricky. Great to be with you.
And you're calling in for us from Canberra today, back for federal parliament for 2022, a fairly short period, and then we'll have a federal election, I imagine. What's the mood like over there?
Well, we're surrounded by protesters, the Australian Federal Police. Roads are blocked off, basically so we can get into the building and get on with the job. So, yeah, look, wars within, wars without. What can I say?
Well, there's a bit of energy around the place as well, but how is the government focusing on trying to get on with the job of actually running the country with all these sort of brouhaha about text messages and the like?
There are certainly enough of us in the House who just want to get on and do the job and, put all the argy-bargy and the clearly orchestrated release of text messages that actually occurred 12 months ago and in the other case 2 years ago. It's just perfect timing, isn't it? Going into the final 2 weeks of sitting potentially and, with serious issues on our plate. So I'm prepared to put them aside and to focus on the things that matter to the people of Mallee. I think the problem with the Canberra strong crowd here is that it's very important to media. These issues are very important to some politicians, but they're certainly not important to me. Integrity matters, don't get me wrong. Integrity matters. And faithfulness to the parliament matters. But the focus for me is fighting for the interests of Mallee.
Now, just quickly, just to clarify a matter that has come up, there is all this focus in the Canberra bubble about these text messages, but you're a member of the National Party, Barnaby Joyce, did offer his resignation to the PM, but that's been rejected. Have I got that correct?
That's correct.
Yep, so he's soldiering on with the job. And let's soldier on talking about, well, if I can segue, talking about soldiers and aged care. It sounds like the Defence Force is going to get involved in helping in the aged care sector.
Yeah, 1,700 have been deployed, and my understanding is that there will be some hands-on, but primarily it's not to take over the workforce because we have 280,000 in the workforce in Australia. These are incredibly difficult times, and specifically for aged care. And there is, a recognition that while we're getting through Omicron, everybody wants to get out the other side. Everybody wants to stop having to wear masks and checking in and temperature checking and rapid tests. We just all want to move to where that sunny land in the future that we all loved prior to COVID, where we could just freely get about our business. But the reality is that these services in particular, the aged care sector, has really done it tough. And when you've got staff who are out either with COVID or isolating, it has created an additional burden to the already significant issue of workforce for the aged care sector, and that includes the 37 aged care facilities in Mallee.
Yeah, speaking of those facilities, I understand the Mildura City Council is going to move out of providing aged care services. Is there going to need to be a role from the state and federal government to step in to help out there?
What's happened is that the federal government, in response to the Royal Commission, has acknowledged that the home care service delivery is inefficient. It's not working well. And so we're moving to more of an NDIS style delivery for home care. So people will be in charge of their own home care services. The council acknowledged that they cannot make it work financially. It will not be viable for them to continue the service. And fundamentally, their reading of the situation is that you need around 250,000 clients to make it viable. Well, that's going to be pretty tricky. And my thinking is that we will probably end up with an out-of-town provider overseeing service delivery where people choose who will come into their home and, a little bit like the NDIS. So I think watch this space. We've got an 18-month period before things are, put in concrete, and I know the council will pick up the pieces if necessary until all of that is sorted. So nobody will be without care. The difficulty we have in regional settings, of course, is our thin markets. That is, not many people in very vast distances who require that care, and a thin workforce. Not enough people who can travel those distances to provide the care. And, look, it's a challenge. Regional health service, aged care service, disability service delivery is challenging for that very reason.
Now, you mentioned the workforce a couple times there in the aged care front. Would that be assisted, do you think, by the federal government announcing the nation will reopen to international travel for vaccinated travellers from I think it's the 21st of February?
Yeah. Look, I think that we're looking at, again, a multi-pronged approach with regard to dealing with workforce. International workers coming in, obviously we welcome those with open arms, but we're also successfully engaging with people who are not currently trained and putting them into positions such as aged care and providing traineeships in the process. Council were telling me about that yesterday, that it was really successful. They're really proud of the outcomes. And that is the style of moving forward, where we have people who perhaps haven't been in the workforce or are looking to change their direction in terms of their workforce, and opportunities will be there with regard to apprenticeships and traineeships on the job. I think it's a great model. People can earn while they learn, and it's something that we really want to see ramped up, not just in aged care, but in other sectors as well.
It's a big topic there, and in the political multiverse, I'd split off and have a good chat with you about immigration versus training people to get into jobs. But I want to move to religious freedom, Dr. Webster. This is a hot topic. The election promise of the federal coalition last election was that we would have some religious freedom protection for Christian schools and the like. Now, the government's still trying to get something over the line before the election.
Yeah, absolutely. I headed, as chair of the Human Rights Standing Committee, a public inquiry over the Christmas break, where we had several days of hearings, public hearings, where we heard from many witnesses, evidence that feeds into how people are viewing the current draft of the legislation or the legislative package of bills. And you know, it's fair to say that it's contentious. What we want to see is that people who have religion, whatever that religion is, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Catholic, whatever it might be, and those who do not have a religion, are protected and not discriminated against. This package of legislation is around providing a shield for people so that they have a sense of freedom to speak their truth and their beliefs in a safe way without harm. So it has to be in good faith, because the statement of belief is one of those clauses that people really have got tripped up over. It is not with the intent where people can cause harm or vilify or harass in any way. And I think what we need to remember is that Australia is a signatory to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. In that space, there are anti-discrimination laws that have been put in place for age, for race, for sex, for disability. And under the International Covenant, the only one that we have not got in place is for religious belief. And it is, if you look at our OECD countries across the world, it is upheld as just as important as a protected attribute as any of the other ones. In Australia, I think it is a very necessary piece of legislation. We worked very hard in terms of public inquiry to understand and hear from everyone, whether it was religious schools, whether it was the gay lobby groups, to understand what the points of view that were raised with us. I am of the opinion that the legislation, with the minor recommendations that we made, should be passed. So I guess we'll wait and see now. My understanding is that we'll be coming into the House maybe today, and I know the Prime Minister is very keen to see it pass before we break, before budget.
Okay, so for the situation you mentioned, quoting, I guess this is the quoting scriptures, for instance, be it the Quran or the Bible. The mind goes to the Israel Folau scenario. I know that's attracted a lot of controversy, but if someone, in your view, under the bill as it's currently drafted, or as the government wants to amend it, if someone just posts on their social media feed a Bible verse and nothing more, or a Quran verse or nothing more, is that going to be protected by this bill?
I actually feel that I think it should be. In the sense that that is their belief. The issue around statement of belief is that it is a tenet or a strongly held view of the participant in that religion. And, the Folau incident certainly was highly controversial. The point with this statement is that it should not cause harm. The reality is, even the opposition leader has said that when you are seeking to put up an anti-discrimination bill, it should not discriminate against someone else. I made the statement yesterday that rights are inherently competitive, and I've been held down on Twitter about it. But the reality is that when you are giving freedom for one, it can impact on another. And so it needs to be managed so that ultimately we have respect and acceptance of the diversity that exists in our culture.
So that scenario then, if you're simply sharing a Bible verse or a verse from the Quran or other religious text, are some people advocating that is implicitly harmful and you shouldn't be allowed to do it?
I'm sure there are people who are going to be saying that, Ricky. I'm sure people are going to be saying that. But people who have faith, it is their identity. It is who they are. So, I think when I was listening to everyone in the public hearings, you listen to religious people, whatever their religion might be, and then you listen to people who were of, another lobby group. And inherently there was a lack of understanding about where they come from and how the ethos, particularly of religious people, a religious school, they want to protect the ethos of their school. Faith is caught, not taught. And, why should teachers adhere to the faith of the school? Because of that principle, that faith is caught, not taught. And so even if you're a maths teacher, there should be an acknowledgement of the school's belief as a teacher in that school because of the influence of that person on the students. It's tricky space. I'm not saying it's simple, but we've got to come to a point where we have an understanding that these are valid concerns of religious people and religious institutions, and they too need to be protected.
Well, Anne Webster, we'll have to leave it there. I hope you took your gumboots, your Wellingtons to get through the quagmire of all those topics even just what we've mentioned there. Thanks for your time again. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks.